Hey everyone, Vince here from the Down Level Podcast. This week I wanted to do a little different intro. Um, I actually hit 81 subscribers this weekend. I'm very thankful for everyone who subscribed. I'm very thankful for everyone who checks out the podcast and leaves a comment. It means the world to me. It means that I'm getting engagement on the content I create with my friends and family. This podcast is a labor of love, and it's also something for me to get over the things that I feel that I have wrong in my life. Being able to present in front of an audience, a virtual audience, is still a little nerve-wracking instead of especially looking into a camera. Also trying to find the words. But this week I am joined by my Uncle Colin, my buddy David, my best friend Jeff for the first time, who was a little nervous doing this. So I hope you guys enjoy what he has to say. His brother Thomas as well. And then towards the end of the podcast, maybe halfway through, my dad shows up. He was actually supposed to be in the episode, and we were supposed to do a full-on episode about kung fu movies. But because I couldn't get a hold of him, we just kind of did a makeshift episode. And we hope you enjoy. Again, thank you for checking out the podcast and everything I do on this channel, that we do on this channel. It means a lot to me. And, have a good one. All right, let's get into the episode.
What's the title?
There we go.
Okay, continue your rant.
So no, the funniest thing about all the Nolan movies is me and my brother, whenever Batman Begins first came out, and we're like, oh man, it's finally not the Joker, and we're actually getting, some of the more interesting backstory of Batman. We're getting Raws and all that. And then of course they teased Joker at the end. Me and my brother, before anything else was coming out, we both said, okay, second movie, we want it to be The Long Halloween, right? Or close to The Long Halloween. We want it to be Joker and Two-Face, and boom, that's what we got. And before even The Dark Knight came out, I said the end of this series, I want it to be Bane. I want it to end on Bane. And he and I sat, and I wish to God I could go back and record it, because I was like, I want it to be Bane, and I want it to be Talia who brings him to Gotham and has the whole slugfest. Awesome. So the fact that me and my brother, back when Begins came out, called the next two movies like verbatim, we're like, it lined up so good. And yes, Tom Hardy's voice in that movie is so stupid. And then his explanation whenever people were asking about it, oh, I tried to go back to the roots of, no, you didn't. You picked a weird ass voice and you went with it. And that's fine and good. Thanks, Tom. But the fact that he was bulked up, the whole scene where he fights Batman in the Batcave, all that stuff, man, was so good. And then he goes out like a bitch to Catwoman's stupid motorbike.
Okay.
I hate it. But I love it at the same time.
He needed to be like 3 times larger than what he was.
It just so happens I like the motorbike.
And on top of that, he was missing the Venom. But you know what is funny, though? He did get the Venom anyway. And he did get bigger. And he had a voice that, represents kind of almost what he could have had in that movie. But no.
Just in a different...
just in a different series. It took Marvel... It took Marvel to bring Tom Hardy to Venom versus DC.
Oh. Well, he died as the Shocker. What are you talking about? And it wasn't Marvel that brought him out. It was Sony, right? Sony's the one who did that one, sir. Anyways.
He wasn't the Shocker in that movie. 2 different people.
In the first Spider-Man movie, he was. He was the Shocker that got killed. That was Tom Hardy.
Are you serious?
I swear to God, dude. Go look it up. Tom Hardy was in Homecoming. He was the first guy that was the Shocker.
Well, look this up. I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all.
Google it.
Filmography. Here we go. We're gonna get copyright.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Track.
Apologies.
Even though this may not make it into the episode. All right.
Cultural references.
He was Eddie Brock in Venom. They're rocking Venom 2.
Oh, I take it back. Apparently, it's some dude named Logan Marshall Green. Looks a hell of a lot like Tom Hardy, though. I'll give him that.
I was gonna say it wouldn't kill off Tom Hardy that quick.
Hey, I don't know, but I do love Mr. Tom Hardy. He's awesome.
No, I have no problem with Tom Hardy. It's the fact that that voice sucked. It had nothing to do with Bane at all. I mean, it was just as bad as the was it Batman Forever? Or no,
no,
Forever.
you take that
Batman
shit
and
back.
Robin.
No,
Batman
you take
and Robin.
that shit back. That is not even close. Bane was such a horrible version of like the Hulk in that movie. Bane smash. That's it. That's all it fucking said. At least in The Dark Knight Rises, he was a conniving, intelligent, planning shit out. Like he had his shit together in The Dark Knight Rises. He was so much closer to Bane. Guys, that's the closest we're gonna get to comic book Bane.
No, it's not.
And
we need better than that. I broke the bat.
What I want right now, because of the fact that Matt Reeves is leaning more into like the weird, creepy aspects of it, right? Because this new Batman's way more horror influenced. I would love to see them try to do Clayface.
Yes, I want Clayface.
Clayface to be so good. Oh my god! If you and just lean, like you don't have to go full sci-fi into it, right? But just to see him done in a horror, because he's a horror movie monster at the end of the day, and to see him done in that kind of horror movie aesthetic, like that really dark grittiness to it, like they turned the Riddler into the Zodiac killer in this movie.
Yes, they do.
And so it's like, if you're gonna do that to Riddler, I'd be curious to see what they could pull off with Clayface. That would be pretty dope.
I would love the whole thing of like him being that whole, big famous actor, and then like him, having a falling out with the studio, him getting scarred, him using the makeup and realizing it does more properties for it, and him like using that to help like fund side projects, because he has this big extravagant lifestyle, and he's like, okay, I'm not making it big bucks because he can only be in B movies and stuff. So this, of course, attracts the bat, and that'd be pretty cool idea.
Yeah. No, like I said, right now, I hope the Reeves Batman does well. I was watching some of the non-spoiler reviews that people have been putting out today, and it all sounds really good. I don't understand why the WB feels this need to make 3-hour movies. I don't understand that.
That's the biggest complaint everybody said is it's very long.
It's so long.
Well,
3 hours.
The WB doesn't get their superhero movies right anyway, so
yeah, they don't. I mean, it's sad. It's how can you have two characters that have all this back history, and you can't find someone to write a good story for these characters without them being dark and gritty. Even, the ultimate Boy Scout, Superman himself, he can't be the bright ray of hope that we all want him to be. He's got to be emo and all these other things, and not wanting to take up the mantle to be the hero for the planet he's on. I honestly think, I really and truly think that if WB had not been in such a rush to get to the Justice League, that if you go and you really look at Batman versus Superman, there is an interesting Superman movie to be had there, where, because you would have had the fallout from Man of Steel. The second movie would have been him, because, Batman versus Superman, they speed through and say, oh, everybody loves Superman now, right? Like, he was this horrifying creature that, like, was a part of this alien group that wiped out an entire major city. And now all of a sudden everybody loves him, and they do that quick little montage of him saving all the people from the flood and doing this, that, and the other, right? And it was like, okay, I understand y'all trying to do that, but it goes back to what I talked about in one of the previous episodes, where they're not earning that moment, right? The death of Superman didn't have the weight because they didn't earn it. So I always think of Batman versus Superman as
that is two movies that they smashed together and tried to make one movie out of, and then ended it with what should have been a third movie, right? You should have had Man of Steel 2, where you have Superman coming more into the hero that he should be. Then you could have had your solo Batman film with Batfleck just running around destroying motherfuckers, is what I wanted to see. I get, Batman's not supposed to be violent. No, Batman puts people in the hospital, right? Yeah. Like he decimates people.
He cripples
and
them.
That would have been awesome to see that dark, again, Frank Miller's Dark Knight, right? See him go that route with it. And
it was the Dark Knight. It was the Dark Knight without them actually fully going full Dark Knight.
Right. But it would have been cool to see them lean into that, and then you lead into the BVS movie. That could have been, but because Warner Brothers looked over at the Marvel camp and saw them just printing stacks of money, right? They're like, we got to get there. We got to rush over there as fast as we can. And now we've got a half-baked movie and the Justice League, which was sad.
That movie was...
But you want to know what? If this teaches WB to just go in and make good solo hero films, I'm all for it, because I miss those. I miss just being able to go into a movie without having to worry about 80 million other movies worth of backstory. I don't need to think about, I wonder which of the 80 million characters we've introduced in this backstory is going to show up in this goddamn movie. Do I have, man, maybe if this guy and this guy and this guy, no. Just laser focus in on, we're going to tell an awesome insert hero story. And that's all I need to care about.
I'm not mired in canon like you guys, so when I watch, say, a Marvel movie or something, I'm just entertainment. I know loosely the story, and it fills in blanks for me as opposed to contradicting canon. I just enjoy the movie. It's kind of nice,
Yeah,
and yes,
and I get. I'm in this weird camp of I'm not really looking forward to a lot of the Marvel stuff coming up. I don't know. All the baggage in those, and I wish I could just turn my brain off to them. I've tried in a couple cases, and they keep doing everything they can to drag me back in and remind me, hey, there's this giant universe with all these characters in. It's like, yeah, that's great. So why is New York still like constantly almost on the verge of destruction when you have every superhero team on the face of the earth here, guys? When it was just Spider-Man, I understood. But now that we've got Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the X-Men, those guys on the moon, right? Now the Eternals, it's like, why do we have problems? I don't understand this, but it's fine.
Well, considering the fact that...
Yeah,
go ahead. I was going to say, considering the fact that the X-Men don't exist just yet, and then on top of that, you got the Fantastic Four? That's supposed to be announced this phase. And we're actually in the stage of them world building now with this next phase. And I need to mute that. That's annoying.
See, and that's my point, is I don't need any of that shit. Just give me the X-Men, right? I don't want to know how I don't want to know how Doctor Strange fits into and how he meets Captain Picard and all this other shit. Just give me the X-Men. Just give me the X-Men. Just throw mutton chops on Tom Hardy, give him claws, and let's go.
Yeah.
I don't care that he's also Venom. He could make Tom Hardy be Wolverine, Venom, Captain America, for all I give a shit. Just, again, let's get back to good, just solo superhero movies without having to tie in a million little universes to everything. Just give us good stories, right? That's all I need. That's all I want. It's all I would like to get back to, but Marvel makes way too much money for us to ever get there, so it's fine. Well, I'm hoping Blade is good.
You guys like kung fu movies?
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right, so
I'm happy with Marvel's movies. I think they're great.
I do too.
My son loves them, and I'm trying to explain to him why there's more than one Spider-Man. Is that DC or something? I don't know, but that's a little confusing.
Yeah.
And not
I'm in a weird camp. I know I am. I've been in a weird camp since the Guardians, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I have to
So-
call my brother for any like fill-ins for movies in order, and he explains the backstory, and then I explain it to my kids. So it looks like I know what I'm talking about, but I
you
really
go.
don't. He'll watch this video one day. I really don't know.
That's an idiot.
You need, to hide, you need to hide it and bury this video so he can't find it.
Edit.
Hey, it might just lead to an appreciation for how well you sell, right? It's like I didn't know a single thing of what I was saying,
Yeah,
but I
man.
sold it so good you believed it, right? So hey,
The sell the sizzle,
work.
as they say.
All right, so let me do. I think that's a really good introduction to this episode. So we had other plans. Well, welcome to the Down Level Podcast, episode 31. We had other plans for this episode, but my dad couldn't make it. So we're gonna just put something together. We hope you enjoy. So far, it's been about ranting and complaining about films,
complaining about
Batman
Marvel.
and Marvel, and we'll just see how this goes. And if you like this kind of open form, process for us coming up with an episode that entertains you, let us know down below. So in this episode, let's just get going.
Welcome to episode 31. David's in a weird camp, but it's fine.
It's
Yeah. I've made my peace with this a long time ago. I just remember when Guardians came out, and I came out of it, and everybody's like, "That was the greatest Marvel movie of all time," and I'm like, something was off. Something was off.
Funny.
Huh? Yeah.
I just
And
like
that's what everybody. Everybody's like, "Man, it was so funny," and I'm like, it didn't land. It didn't stick. It didn't hit me here. And then the weird dance to beat Ronan the Accuser, and it's fine. I'm
would have been better if it would have been Ryan Reynolds playing Star-Lord instead of
no.
Sprat. Just because
No.
it's like that's his type of role anyway.
No, because he's so much better as Deadpool, and he can lean in so much harder to all the things that make Deadpool, right? It's Ryan Reynolds is perfect in that role. And again, it's like what I went into this the other day. I don't remember if we were recording, but it's not the humor, right? It's not the fact that there are jokes. One of my friends and I got into this debate, and he's like, "Well, did you like Iron Man?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I loved the first Iron Man movie." He's like, "It had jokes." I'm like, "Yeah, but it evenly spaced all that crap out. I didn't have to sit there and listen to just rapid fire joke upon joke upon joke upon joke upon joke."
Tony Stark's witty. I mean,
Yeah, no,
naturally anyways,
Robert
right? So it's
Downey
part of the
Jr.
story.
is fantastic.
The man knows how to deliver.
Yes.
Is it maybe because that you are not familiar with Star-Lord and his type of character?
That could
I
be
mean-
it. But that might be it. But at the same time, it's just the new Suicide Squad movie, right? I hated it because it's that same brand style of humor that's going on. And for some people that they love that stuff, right? And for whatever reason, I've just been slowly discovering since that first Guardians movie that just grates on my nerves at a certain point. It's like parts of the movies I enjoy, parts of the movies I like, but as a whole, I don't want to rewatch it again because I don't want to have to sit through that 15 minutes of them just doing some horrible, cringy dialogue between Idris Elba and Peacemaker as they're walking through that camp shooting guys. There were some people that was their favorite scene in the whole movie. I was waiting for it to be. Oh, hello. Sorry.
Karma.
He's so
Now
upset
I'm
he's
upside
upside
down.
down.
Flip your world upside down.
There we go. Let's see if I can fit. And now I'm upside down again. Let's try this.
And we're upside down
Not
again.
working.
I'm upside down.
Go with it, man. Just go with it.
Something's not right.
There we go.
There you
Just
go.
go with it.
Computer plugged in?
Anyways. But anyway, so yeah, that was like everybody's favorite scene in that movie, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. I don't know. I don't know how better to explain it. It's just it's a level of cringy humor that it doesn't land with me. It is not my brand of humor, which is weird because I love over the top nonsense. It's just I don't know. I need I need them to dial it back just a bit, and it might actually sit with me a little bit better than it has.
It could be just because of the fact I understand that when there's certain type of humor that people can stand and some people can't. And it may be also because of the directing of James Gunn, because technically he did the first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He did,
Suicide Squad.
And, it's...
There's probably going to be similar elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. And it's like...
Too, so.
Which one?
Peacemaker.
Yeah. Has anybody watched that yet?
Yeah, I watched it.
I don't
How is
have
it?
HBO Max.
Definitely not for kids.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It's not for kids.
Pretty good.
Dad said he enjoyed it. So, yeah.
I mean, I've only heard him talk about it like a million times. Really cool.
I still got to watch
I'll end
it.
up watching it.
What we like.
I'll end up watching it.
Yeah, so I still haven't actually watched Peacemaker or Suicide Squad yet. I just haven't had time.
Yeah.
Other things going on. I want to watch it. I mean, I enjoy, those movies, but I'd rather see other characters. And as we were talking about Batman with Clayface, I want Clayface to be made into a movie.
Who is Clayface? Like, where does he fit in?
So he's one of Batman's rogues gallery. He's the one that basically can shape shift. He looks like a pile of clay. He can make anything.
His backstory, or at least one of his backstories, is he was an actor. Like if you watch the old Batman animated series, they kind of melded the first 2 Clayfaces together. Mm-hmm. And because he's an actor and he was in like a bunch of old horror movies and things, he uses that to change his look so that he can look like those various characters. And so it's almost like The Thing, right? You don't know if who you're talking to is who they are until all of a sudden he morphs and just starts like swallowing you up into his body and trying to asphyxiate you and that kind of stuff. But yeah,
With a hammer.
yes,
Yeah, dude, he was made out of
Nice
sand. I
spike
forget
ball.
what movie. Maybe
Sand,
Batman or something.
From Spider-Man.
yeah. He's pretty much Sandman except a little bit different because he can. Where Sandman's just sand, right? Clayface can actually change completely how he looks and all that good stuff. So, yeah, he's one of the cooler Batman members of his rogues gallery that we just haven't gotten the chance to see yet. And it would be really cool to see that kind of a different villain done. Right?
And I would love to see like Killer Croc, the way he looked in Suicide Squad, the first one. I didn't like it. That wasn't Killer Croc to me. Killer Croc is,
The lizard was closer to Killer Croc.
Yeah, the little lizard was closer to Killer Croc. And I mean, I even like, if you play the Batman Arkham games, that's what I want. I want to see that. And then Ron Perlman, did the voice of him in the Batman animated series.
Isn't he doing another Hellboy?
He wants to. The studio's avoiding it, but he wants to do the third one.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched the reboot.
The reboot. I want to. I mean, just because I like, the actor who played him. And I like the character.
Yeah.
But I heard it was different.
I haven't got around to seeing it.
Yeah, and then Rogues Gallery for Batman, that'd be great. You got.
They could do Calendar Man.
Mm-hmm.
The new version of Calendar Man would be a good villain for the movie.
Weird ass Calendar Man.
Well, I want a real true to form Mr. Freeze, not chill. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Ice Age.
Yeah.
Get to the ice chopper.
But I'd rather have. I mean, it would be really cool to have a really good Mr. Freeze. I don't know who you would get to play him.
I was about to ask you who you'd cast for that.
I mean, technically, this is a joke answer here. since Victor Freeze was always about his wife and everything, trying to cure Nora of her disease and stuff, you can get Van Diesel because he's all about family.
First kind of thought that came to my head,
And Tom Hardy.
and he was already perfect
Tom Hardy.
in a horribly wasted movie, but Mark Strong, he's got the now that he's running around with the bald head and all that, Mark Strong could probably be a pretty strong Mr. Freeze. But-
And it would work because that universe is detached from all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh. See, you get freedom. You got freedom to do everything you want with all that. Speaking of Mark Strong, though, a movie that I need to sit down and watch is The Kingsman. Man,
Yes.
Yes.
Man.
Good. It was real good.
That's
was
really good. I haven't watched it yet either.
I didn't like
Wait,
the
I-
second one, but I love the
Store.
recent one.
I was walking through the store and I saw it and I picked it up and bought it just because I love the first two movies, man. And that's kind of where I'm curious, right? The one of the things I'm really curious about with movies right now is when is the superhero craze going to end? We've been sitting in this weird glut of superhero movies for so long. I wonder what, if anything, will unseat them as the movie du jour, right? The big blockbuster thing that goes on because we have the occasional spy movies, right? We had the Kingsman, we had the most recent Bond. There's like these little bitty sprinklings of them. It doesn't feel like they're going to be the ones to do it, but it's like I'm really curious when we're going to get to a point where superhero movies aren't the thing that's coming out every 3 months and making $1 billion every time we turn around.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
COVID
big
took a
money.
stab at it, so
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got all the stuff that we're getting on Netflix right now, Red Notice, which is the Ryan Reynolds extraordinaire movie is the things he's doing. Red Notice, the Free Guy.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
The new movie he's got with about the time travel, where he goes back and meets himself from the past. That looks really
Oh,
good.
yeah.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because it's sci-fi related, that looks really good. That's what we need, though. We need something to come out that's going to just kind of change the dynamic of film right now. And I don't know how that's going to happen right now with everything going on in the world, plus everything else. And that's about as far as I'm going to go on that. Because, it's sad. We could have had some big changes with Aliens with Neil Blomkamp doing Aliens 5. And if he would have gotten the rights to be able to do that, like he was planning, all that production artwork, Sigourney Weaver was going to come, Michael Biehn was going to come back. They were going to get the original actress who played Newt. And I think even Lance Hendrickson was supposed to be doing a voice of maybe, or come back as Bishop or something. But that would have been fantastic. But of course, Ridley Scott was like, "Oh, I want to do my Holland's opus of my grandmaster opus of me experimenting on storytelling about my life and creationism and aliens and things." It's like, dude, just calm down, make something else. Maybe make a sequel to Legend or something. That'd be great.
Oh, have them fight Darkness's daddy, just straight up. Let's go, devil.
Yeah, completely go to that whole thing of finishing up that storyline there.
Tom Cruise is in. I guarantee it.
And it,
That would be awesome. Seeing current day Tom Cruise running around with unicorns fighting the devil. I'm down. I'm absolutely down for that.
Down
Or
for all
like-
stunts.
his Lily and his kid, like him dealing with the curse that was brought upon by taking out darkness. The whole like Castlevania thing. What a horrible night to have a curse.
That would be awesome. Like
Yeah,
an
you
actual
could add the
Castlevania
mission-
movie.
Yeah.
You could add the Mission Impossible theme to all that. Have him and the unicorn on the suspension wire sneaking in.
That word.
If we're going to end the comedies, yeah.
Have the
The
unicorn
devil
like
guy,
this.
The devil in Legend freaked me out really badly when I was a kid.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
Tim Curry, Darkness,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was super scary.
I love that movie.
All right.
I mean, the thing with film, though, is that, we really need something to kind of break through And I think that there's too much of people pushing agendas for things, and
For real.
Can't escape.
they're looking for shortcuts, or they're trying to bet on the sure things to gain money because they're afraid that if they were to pursue something different, that it may not work out. And that's bad because, you know, that's not what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Definitely not in the 80s. I mean, in the 70s, when we had the big boom of films and everything, you know, we had the introduction of like the standard horror films we have now. And same thing with sci-fi. Sci-fi really boomed with Star Wars and things like Tron and The Last Starfighter. And we need those films. You think about, like today I was thinking about, because I was looking at something on Twitter and somebody had posted something about the three, the stone elements from The Fifth Element. And, you know, I was thinking about it's like The Fifth Element was a groundbreaking movie. And we need more movies like that.
Great movie.
Yeah. Like Lucy was a great movie, and that didn't come out like what, 6 or 7 years ago? Fantastic film. Of course, both those films were done by Luc Besson. So we need like new directors to come in and kind of change the status quo. And we need people, producers and studios to want to help fund those projects so we can get some good content.
Yeah. We need another Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of the
making
great
movies, right?
majority of the great
I
content
think
right now
he's
is
making something new. I don't know. Sorry, David, go ahead.
That's fine. I mean, the majority of the great content right now is coming from the indie stuff, right? Like the guy who did The Witch and the Lighthouse, right? It's like he's slowly been upping his game because now he's got that new Viking movie coming out that looks amazing, right?
The Northman?
Which one, Jeff?
Is that Northman or is it something totally different?
I'm not sure. Something real quick for myself. Hold on.
Robert Eggers, how the hell you say his name? What's the new one? The Northman.
Northman, yeah.
Yeah, that's the name of it. It looks awesome. And that guy, like, part of what's so awesome about that guy is just how detailed he gets into everything, right? Like he really dives into all of the little details about all that stuff. That's what made The Witch so good. The Lighthouse, for as weird as that movie is, right? Just the attention to detail and just the way he shoots stuff is really good. And you know, that's honestly where the majority of all of
Now,
the
that's
really
the
great-
one with Robert Pattinson, right? And William Dafoe, the Lighthouse one, or is that a different? Okay, same.
No,
one.
that's yeah. It's a weird ass movie, dude. It's just, if you haven't seen it,
Well, it's supposed to be based on a true story. I mean, like at least the legend of the lighthouse. There was like a situation where the lighthouse situation that happens in that, but there's the folktale side of it.
yeah.
That the old mermaids and everything that they talk about in that movie.
There's a lot that happens with mermaids in that movie. Well, I wouldn't say a lot.
Yeah.
There's specific things that happen with a cutout statue of a mermaid in that movie. That again, it's a weird movie. It's a really weird movie, but it's good if you like really weird shit, which that one definitely is. But
I mean, we're getting a lot of those films from Nicolas Cage being in with the Color Purple,
Color Out of Space, man.
Big.
Color Out of Space, yeah. And then what was it? Oh, come on, what was the Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff?
Willy's Wonderland?
Yeah, Willy's
Oh.
Wonderland.
He is
Actually, pretty good.
so weirdly hit and miss, right?
I know,
Like weirdly hit and miss.
but he's
with all
been
the-
he's been playing the same character almost in all these movies he's been doing lately.
Well, it's because everybody just wants to see Crazy Cage, right? It's like every movie that we do, it's got Nicolas Cage. We need him for at least an hour to be as batshit crazy as he possibly can be, running around doing a bunch of batshit crazy Nick Cage things, and that's what people want to see. which hey, it's
It's
fun.
like Steven Seagal. He's like the same character, like with Taggart or something every movie, you know.
There's two movies, I forget what they're called, but they came out in like the same year. And if you look at the boxes, they're two completely different movies. But if you read the synopsis of both of them and you watch them together, it's the same damn movie, except maybe like two scenes are different. But other than that, almost, God, what are they? I can't remember the names of them for the life of me. But yeah, Seagal, I mean, all those old action movie guys, right? They just, some of them actually went on to do slightly different things, and some of them just found their niche, man, and they sat in that rut and then they just churned it out. But hey, it made them money, right?
I imagine this towards Kung Fu, if you haven't noticed, but continue.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
David.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Code of Silence with Chuck Norris?
Code of Silence with Chuck Norris. I might have. It's been.
I don't know if I've had. Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a minute since I've watched the Chuck Norris movie. Which one is that?
It's he's a cop in Chicago, and he ends up going against the other cops because they were like covering stuff up and letting this old cop make mistakes and everything. And then he was on a call, and then nobody would respond to help him. If you watch that movie and Above the Law, it's almost shot for shot. It's almost the same thing.
It's glorious, man. Those weird old action movies were just like, you're a loose cannon, you know, all the tropes, right? You're a loose
You're a
cannon.
loose cannon. Oh man,
yeah.
I can't wait for the new Top Gun.
Yeah, I can't either.
So excited.
Yeah, it looks great. It's funny too. It's like, man, what is this? A ripoff of Macross Plus test pilots? This supposedly AI driven ghost fighter or whatever.
Oh, you mean the movie Stealth with who was in that?
Exactly. Yeah, basically. I'm like,
So Val Kilmer's supposed to be in the reboot, I believe, and that prompted me to watch a documentary about him.
yes,
I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys have seen it. Now, completely
fantastic,
different from what I expected.
fantastic documentary. Yeah, getting to see what happened to his life and everything, especially after with his lungs. I mean,
He's like a good dude to me.
yeah, fantastic. I've always like looked up to Val Kilmer. Everything he's been in has been great.
Yeah,
My favorite movie of his is The Saint.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
The Saint is a fantastic movie. So underrated.
Well, and one that we were talking about earlier that I didn't talk about in the podcast, but was Real Genius was one of my favorites. Besides,
Yeah, that's a good
one of his greatest roles is Mad Mardigan from Willow.
Okay, yeah.
Never-ending story, like that's a special category. I was a kid, you know.
All those fantasy movies we used to watch.
Scary.
Yeah.
The Rats of Nim, is that right? Am I getting that right?
No, Secret of Nim.
Your Nim.
Secret of Nim.
They got rats in them.
Yes, yes.
As
That
pivotal
was-
as it was for me, I can't remember.
all those old was it Don Bluth, right? No.
Yeah.
Wait,
Well,
Yeah.
it's not
Don
Bluth.
Bluth.
yeah. Land Before Time, friggin' the Secret of Nim, just all that stuff was
American Tail.
Mhm.
American Tail. Although I only the one that I watched more than American Tail was Five Goes West, right? Five
Yeah,
Goes
we
West.
watch more 501 Goes West than anything.
That was fantastic.
I bring up his movies real quick.
Oh, Bluth?
Yeah,
Dude, he's got so many, and then all the what was it, Dragon's Lair, that video game, the old arcade game that was just brutally difficult. It's like, oh hey, look everybody, look at the princess in the sparkly dress. You can come beat this, right? No, you can't. Good luck.
my dad did.
He did.
He was a third person. in
Every
Houston.
weekend we would go up there and he would play more and more and get further along. And then turned around and did the same thing with Space Ace.
Yep, Space Ace, and then did it with the Dragon's Lair 2. We used to go to so right over there by my grandmother, behind Edgebrook, there was a gas station closer to Alameda that we would go to that had the second one there. So we would go there to get drinks, and Dad would sit there and pop some quarters in to play for a little while.
So I got his filmography here at least. Yeah. The first couple ones on right. The first big film that he directed was actually Secret of Nim, then American Tail, Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven,
Mhm.
Rockadoodle. Man, I hadn't thought about that movie in a long time.
Yeah.
Thumbelina, I'm not familiar with. Troll and Central
Yeah.
Park, The Pebble and the Penguin. He did the Anastasia movie.
Asia movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Creepy ass Rasputin. And then Titan AE. Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic movie. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
Titan AE was good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
What there was Titan AE, and around the same time they had the weird sci-fi. What was it? Lost Planet, right? Which was the whole take on
Yes.
Oh, Treasure
Treasure-
Planet. Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet. There we go.
Yeah. That was one of
Treasure
my
Island.
favorites. Yeah.
Space. Man, like just crazy, weird mix up of genres like that was so cool to see them go out there and put their foot forward on it and try it. It's like the new Lightyear movie, right? I think I made the comment on the last episode or before we were recording the last episode, I'm not sure. But that new Lightyear movie looks really good. Even if
Yeah.
it wasn't, even if it was not Buzz Lightyear, just it looks like a really solid, dude trolling around in space fighting, doing space crap in it. It looks good. And I just don't understand why it's got to be Buzz. It's kind of weird, but hey, it puts kids' butts in seats and we're good to go.
Well, it could be like a different character in the same universe, or just in general, a new universe at all.
You gotta remember the toy was created around an actual story. Maybe they're actually just telling the story, and
Yeah.
in the end, it'll be how the toy came about or something.
Yeah, something along those lines. And just again, it's just one of those things where it's like it looks good enough it could stand on its own, but well.
And that's another thing. Is like you think about the animated films we grew up with, and I'm gonna bring up one here that I wish my dad was here for, but Heavy Metal was a big one.
Big one
Yeah,
of our
very
youth.
big. Yeah, big one of our youth and my dad's youth.
Music, animation, story.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, everything was fantastic. And of course, I'll wait till Colin gets
Yeah.
back and we can bring it up to him too.
Yeah.
I
But
remember when you guys went to go see The Little Mermaid
yeah, I remember that.
in the theater, and your dad was literally in tears. He was like, "It was so beautiful."
Well, it was because of the fact that like that. So you think of like with Disney movies in general, the animated style ones. Little Mermaid is one that changed the style that Disney
Oh,
had
yeah.
been doing for a long
Big time. Yeah.
And I mean, like right after that, we got like Aladdin
I
and
stopped using those old
Lion
Snow
King.
White frames.
Mhm. But Colin, we were talking about Heavy Metal was one of the.
No,
a
I was
big
listening. I was just off
Yeah.
trying to yeet the
Lost
critters.
Star.
But yeah, I mean, the music in that movie was great. I mean, my dad loved that soundtrack. That was his soundtrack for like everything.
Still do.
Anytime he's
Yeah.
playing
Awesome.
games, whenever we first beat Resident Evil, it was like he was listening to the Heavy Metal soundtrack.
I would be more impressed if, as you beat Resident Evil, y'all were listening to the Little Mermaid soundtrack.
It's doable.
I guess you could do that.
At the end of it, it's a whole new world.
But
life.
my dad, I mean, growing up, Dad loved animated films, and it was a big part of our lives growing up. So, and we talked about it in the last episode or the previous episode before that. What? Or in this Legend of Star Chasers, Wizard.
Yes.
Wasn't there one that was like rock and roll or something?
Rock and Roll. Yeah,
Rock
with
and Roll, yeah.
Iggy
I remember
Pop.
the VHS
Robin
and-
Zander.
record like 3 different movies onto.
Yeah. And then you had, what else was it? Felix the Cat. That animation was great
Yeah.
back then. That was a really
Oh, you're
cool.
talking about all the Ralph Bakshi stuff, the guy who did the Lord of the Rings movies and all that, the rotoscope.
Yeah.
Well, we're not, remember, keep in mind, we're not talking about like Fritz, but Felix.
No, that's right.
The Felix movie was fantastic. It had like, and that movie didn't get much love. It was a beautiful movie. I mean, the animation wise and everything, and Felix dealing with like the aliens and stuff, and that his bag that can turn into anything. What else? There was Fire and Ice.
You know, I didn't know that movie existed until I started looking up. I was looking up various Frank Frazetta covers, and he did cover art for that, right? And I was like, I didn't realize this existed. And I've never sat down and watched it. And then I was looking around at stuff the other day, and someone's come out with a movie that was kind of done in that same style / in the same style of a bunch of that Ralph Bakshi stuff. It was called the Spine of Night or something like that. It's got like Lucy Lawless and some others in it. Looks interesting. I don't know if it's any good. It definitely looks like the kind of movie that is better watched under influence of things.
There's quite a few of those movies that, especially if my dad and Colin will talk about, that are better under the influence.
Yeah.
But like, even like my dad like loved the Rainbow Bright movie, because it was so different from the style, and the art style was different than the actual cartoon that my sister watched. What
The
else?
Transformers animated movie.
Transformers animated movie was, I mean, still holds up today.
Yeah.
For what they were doing with that. I'm trying to look at some of the 80s movies that like cartoon wise, because what's funny is before Disney and everything got a hold of Studio Ghibli films, there was few Ghibli films that made it to the States that were done by other companies. And when it was released here, it was called Valley of the Wind.
Right.
But later was, we got the actual Japanese title, which was Natsuka. And that was the first introduction I ever saw of a chocobo, even though it wasn't a chocobo, but it was a bird that this Lord Yappa was riding at the beginning of the film. I was like, and then I went and played Final Fantasy 3 at the time. I was like, oh wow, it's a chocobo. This is amazing. I didn't even know this. But and then you look at like, we also had the movies that were like animation over real life. With the rotoscoping. But like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that movie was a big one for us growing up.
Cool World.
Cool World, yeah. Even though it was more of adult themed,
Yeah.
but we still watch that stuff. But
I mean heavy metal. We were in junior high.
Yes.
So it was definitely.
Well, when we were watching it, yes. When we were watching it, that movie came out in. Yeah, that movie came out in. Let's see, in '81, the year I was born.
Yeah, when I was introduced to it, so.
Yeah. But like The Last Unicorn was another one that was really good. But that's done by the same person who did the Lord of the Rings stuff, which you were talking about earlier.
Bakshi?
Yeah. I believe.
Yeah, man. It's funny because like he's such a he almost feels underrated. There's like all these people that know
Don Bluth, but they don't think about Bakshi. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it's because more of his stuff was on, the more adult end of the spectrum, right? That maybe the reason why he doesn't get quite as much love, that he went there with a lot of his movies and got really, in the face of some things. But it's he definitely had you can very easily see when it's a movie that's his or that's been inspired by something that he did, just because of that visual style that he applied to all his stuff. It's, same thing with Bluth, right? It's like you can just you see certain things and you just know that that's the style, that's the person who made the movie, or they were inspired by that person to do their movies. It was good stuff.
And then there's those other movies too that were based on other properties that we love. Like I know people frown on it now, but I still love that movie, which was Masters of the Universe, Dolph Lundgren. The funny thing about that movie,
go, big no.
It's not based on. It wasn't based off the cartoon. It was actually based off the original idea for the toys. where there was no Prince Adam. It was just He-Man. And it was actually also based off of the DC comic that they were putting with the figures. So they used that to create the story that they kind of gave us. And which is funny is that
Yeah.
the movie Cyborg with
Yep.
our favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme with the villain that's always like every time you see him, he's always doing that growl sound when he's looking at anybody in the screen. But that was supposed to be the sequel to Masters Universe originally, and it was
Really?
supposed to take place in Eternia.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't dig the movie. I love Dolph. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
He's great. But I don't know. I mean, maybe from a cult classic perspective, I can see it, but it just didn't resonate with me at all.
And see, that's the sad thing too. Is like I know that, like, because did you watch the cartoon back then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It just it for
Wasn't
me
much
it was
on
one of
TV
those
back
things.
then, anyways. But
Yeah. We watched a lot of TV back then. All of us. There was no there was no
Internet.
video games at the beginning at that time. There was no internet. We was either
Video on
outside
demand.
or watch whatever's on TV. So like when the Saturday morning cartoons went off, it was like, oh, it's court shows. Oh, it's a rerun of this show from the 60s. I'm gonna go outside and play.
Yeah, time to go outside.
Hey
Yeah.
man,
Kicked out of the house.
some of those shows.
You go outside.
Or you
and
get-
play for-
Or you get kicked out of the house. Yeah, exactly. Go run the apartments. Go jump on the top of the carports and play in the courtyard over there. Play baseball with the kids in the neighborhood.
Yeah, they tore that place down. I'm sure you're aware,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
it's gone.
Yeah.
On in a park, in a dog park.
I bet if I go over there, I could probably almost walk to where our apartment was.
You could.
But I kind of,
Yeah, I'm sure
I have
you
it
could figure
visually
it
in
out.
my head where that apartment was at. I think I can probably get there.
Yeah, I can see it very clearly.
Mhm.
You almost do it blindfolded. I've been there so long.
Did they remove the duck pond? Because that would be a good index.
It's a dog park.
Oh, is it?
Like where that row of apartments are. I don't know if I don't know if the pond's there or not. I don't think it is.
That whole
Okay.
that whole place is a floodplain.
Yeah.
Never build apartments there.
I
I can't tell you how many times we flooded.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that. And then like I was telling Jeff, there was the one time that we were there and there was the car incident that like rammed into a bunch of people's
Oh, I remember
vehicles.
that. Wow.
And me and Jeff were talking about that. And there was also the time that we had lost power for like almost a week. And like we would go barbecue outside and just hanging out as a group while we were waiting for power to be restored. And then man, we would walk and roam around that whole apartment complex.
Yeah.
I know that I wasn't allowed to go to the pool, but we still went over to the pool.
Yeah. I got a ton of memories of hanging out at your apartment and your dad. I'll save that for another time, but I remember vividly.
There's
Yeah.
different adventures at different times of where they lived, and so
Yeah, because and that's the thing is like Colin was living with us and then Ray was living with us while you guys were there both times. I just remember Ray always wanted to try to kill me because I'd get up in the morning playing Super Mario Brothers, and
they were trying to sleep.
he's trying to sleep on the couch, and I'm sitting here like I get up early before I have to go to school. I turn on my TV, and it's dun 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 dun. I'm gonna kill you.
Our mom loves that song.
Yeah, but no. So it's like I was looking at some of the movies too. So some of the stuff like Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland. That was later on. I mean, like in '89. I don't actually remember seeing that in theaters. I think I watched on VHS at somebody's house. But yeah, the same year that came out was Little Mermaid. I'm trying to think of stuff that we actually watched. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
The weird alligator.
What was it? Oliver and Company.
Yeah.
Land Before Time.
Ferngully.
Ed Albert, old reruns.
What, The Rescuers, right? And The Rescuers Down Under. I remember
Yeah,
those.
both Rescuers movies. There was the Daffy Duck's Quackbusters. I remember watching that a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't watch. We watched Brave Star the cartoon, but we never actually watched the movie. I don't remember ever watching it.
Brave Star. Yeah. The
Yeah.
one where he had like the robot horse.
The horse that would like turn into a half horse, half man person robot.
Yeah. Remember that. I remember they had figures for that too, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But then there was like the Jetsons movie. That was like the first movie I remember like that had like that kind of pseudo CGI, because it like when they did the whole, when you see the city and it was panning up through the smog and everything. But then the G.I. Joe the movie, Chipmunk, the Chipmunk Adventure movie was great. I know we watched that one a lot, played it a lot. The Brave Little Toaster.
Brave Little Toaster is great, man.
Mm-hmm.
I keep trying to find that movie to just to buy, just so I can say I have it. I can never find it anywhere for a decent price or anything. But man, I haven't watched that movie in so long.
There's Iron Giant.
And then like that one, and then there's like the Great Mouse Detective.
Yeah.
GoBots, the Rock Lords. I remember like a couple of the kids in the neighborhood had the Rock Lord Transformers. Or the GoBots.
Yeah.
Those are. I just couldn't get over the fact I don't want a transforming rock. You guys are lame. I want a jet that transforms into, Starscream or Megatron, who's a gun.
A cartoon series I would love to see them go back and redo and really really go for it would be Mighty Max. Mighty Max
Yes.
is
Oh
fantastic.
man, I love Mighty Max.
Mighty Max would be great. And the sad thing is I'd love to be able to I'd love to be able to see Tim Curry to come back and do the voice. But
Didn't they do
Yeah.
something else with Mighty Max? Like a short-lived series or a movie or something? Years
I don't know.
back?
I have to look. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. All I ever knew of was the cartoon and the
Yeah,
little-
the cartoon and the figures.
things, right?
Polly Pocket, the Polly Pocket for boys.
Yeah. And it's sad though, because like there's these series that haven't been re-released in digital or physical form at all. Mighty Max is one of them. I'd love to be able to have Mighty Max on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever.
What is it? Pirates of Dark Water. Remember that?
Pirates
yeah.
of Dark Water was a
Man,
great
I
one.
love those.
That was good. Like when Cartoon Network first came out, they were playing that.
Mm-hmm.
Remember
Let me see.
I wanted those toys so bad.
that?
It's a dark
There was a
water.
video game too. Remember?
Yeah, it was a video game. Mm-hmm.
Like a
I'll tell you a
beat 'em
funny
up.
story real quick. So I was in the heat. I think you were just born or something, Jeff, or not much longer after.
I don't remember.
But yeah, I imagine.
I didn't exist at the time.
But He-Man was, hot at that point in time, and I was snooping around in my parents' closet, and there was a Castle of Grayskull in there. My dreams would come true, right? It was covered up with a blanket, and come to find out, it wasn't my toy. They were holding it for a neighbor's kid for Christmas, so I was really disappointed. I was really
That's horrible. Oh man.
Man, that still hurts.
Yeah, so Secret of Nim, there was the Mighty Mouse and the Great Space Chase, there was Fox and the Hound, American Pop, Return of the King. Yeah, I mean I'm sure there was other ones too that we're missing, but man, I mean, because I didn't even go into the anime side of things, but I'm saving some of that for the next episode of the podcast. I do want to go into anime because anime was a big thing for us growing up.
Got me into it was Fist of the North Star. So
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and
I've been
Robotech.
showing Fist of the North Star. And to this day, is still one of my favorite stories and animation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know. Because even the cartoons now, I mean, they're okay. I was talking to somebody yesterday about how like Cartoon Network isn't the same as what it used to be. Because you have all these like ridiculous shows now compared to like what we got back, during the Toonami days or before that.
Kids' humor has changed.
Yeah,
Now where the parents are like, I don't get it.
we are. We used to be in it, and now we don't get it at all.
I don't know.
It's like,
Right. There was all like the Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Courage, just all those shows. And it's funny because I honestly going back and I kept thinking that the format had changed because I remember one of the last times I looked at Cartoon Network, like there were no 30-minute long shows. Everything was split in half. There's like just 15-minute episodes. And really when because I was watching Courage with my daughter the other day, and I realized that it's been that way forever, right? Because Courage, it was a 30-minute block, but you would get 2 episodes, right? Or if it was a 2-parter, it would just be like a whole episode of just covering that entire story. It wouldn't be broken up or anything. So it's like the format technically is still the same and still kind of there. It's just, the kind of stories that they feel like they want to tell, right, is just vastly different than the way it used to be. And some of the shows are pretty good. Like, I really dig a lot of the Gumball stuff. I tried watching Adventure Time, and I just couldn't find a good getting on point with that show. It just
I watched it from the beginning.
I guess because I kept hearing everybody talking about how great it was, how awesome it was, and how this, that, and the other. And I was over at my brother-in-law's house. I forget the reason why we were there, but they had a marathon of Adventure Time going on. And so I just decided to sit down. I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to knock out like 6-7 episodes of this, and we're going to see where it goes. And the only episodes that I remember there was one that I think was a 2-parter where they were fighting a Lich King that ended up possessing Princess Bubblegum. And that was a good couple episodes. And then immediately followed up with that was one where all the people in the little candy village were disappearing, and it turned out to be this deer that just stood up, took off its hooves, and it had hands and was like licking all the peppermint people and sticking them to the walls. It was just so weird and threw me off. And then they immediately followed that with a story of a little fire puppy following a snowman home. It had nothing to do with Finn and any of the others. It was almost Samurai Jack-like in the sense that I don't think there was a single bit of dialogue in the entire episode except at the very end when Finn and Jake show up. But like that episode was great, and that Lich King one was great. And then you had this weird screaming lemon head guy that just grated on my nerves. And I don't know, it was just such a weird mixed bag of a show that I never could quite situate into it and find a good way to just power through and continue watching it. But it's just, there's the people that complain about how everything is turned into SpongeBob, and then now that SpongeBob's moved on, everything's morphed into, what is it, SoCal art, I think is what it's called, right? The same, like Gumball's animated that way.
oh yeah.
Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, all that stuff, they all have a very similar looking animation style, the weird bubble-headed, bubble-eyed, kind of stuff. But Gravity Falls is fantastic, right?
Yes.
Gravity Falls reminded me of Courage in that sense, that every single week it was this weird, almost folk horror story type of stuff that they put their own interesting spin on stuff. And it's like those kind of, there's still those little shows that are sitting out there, those little diamonds in the rough that you can find. They're really good. It's just, you just got to sift through a little bit to find the good ones.
Well, and then you got like what it's funny is Gravity Falls is connected to Rick and Morty, of course.
I think there's one more show that it's connected to.
It's one of the 3 shows that they're connected to. And what else? Yeah, but Samurai Jack, fantastic show.
Gennady Tarkovsky, man.
Yeah,
he had a seriously good run in 80s and 90s.
Yeah, you want to talk about something that redefined stuff, right? Like Jack, Clone Wars, right? That reshaped a lot of the way people thought of animation and how to do it for a while, right? I mean, it was some great stuff. Like, man, Samurai Jack was such a damn good show. And it was sad it took us so long to get that final season. And I'm glad we finally got it. I don't know that the closure was exactly what I was expecting, but man, that was so many good moments, so many good parts, just so well directed, written, the whole nine. Man, it was such a great show.
What's up, Biggin?
Current, yeah.
Welcome. Rumors of my demise were greatly exaggerated.
Oh, well. I'm glad that you were introduced from your machine.
I thought you were taller
Yeah.
instead of I thought you were dead.
Yeah. Well, they did both. I thought you were dead.
Yeah.
You know what it's like to wake up to a reenactment of Close Encounters of the Third Kind with all the police with flashlights through your windows. The whole house is shaking.
Did you find Scarlett with a mound of her cat food in the shape of a mountain?
No. But
Did Richard Dreyfuss call you on the phone and say, this means?
no, I was waiting on this wonderful gathering and all these beautiful faces, and I had one of those coughing fits, and it made me get really lightheaded. So I laid down, hoping that my electronic devices in my home would do their job, and they failed to do so. I just can't believe I didn't hear 9 different phone calls and my neighbors beating on my door, and then 2 really big, nice police officers. Thank you, Van Alstyne Police Department. Appreciate you watching out for me.
You're a very important person, Dad, so that's why we gotta look out for you. You've impacted so many lives there, especially ones on this podcast.
Is that Thomas that I see before me?
Yeah, man.
How you doing, bud? I'm
Hanging in
doing
there.
okay.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it.
Long time no see.
Yeah, for real.
Get you and your son to come up here and visit me, since I don't get to travel much.
We'll hopefully end up back in Texas eventually.
Yeah. You don't get to come up here and visit at all?
Not really. Came back for a funeral one time. That's about it.
That's like me in New Orleans. I only get to go back when I'm burying one of my family.
Yeah. And I don't want to ditch the kids and my wife. Yeah, that's kind of a wrinkle.
We lost Jeff. He's left us.
Well,
His cat
it
probably
chooses.
knocked his phone off.
It's choosing one of us. I've survived now. Jeff is now in the gauntlet.
He's
You
been
have
voted
been
off the island.
podcast. Yeah.
You are the weakest link. Just kidding.
I just thought there was only so much beard we can have on stream at a given time.
I think
beard
it's
level is
epic.
epic.
This is epic.
So anyway, Vince, we're talking about majority of animated stuff throughout the 80s and 90s that we've liked and enjoyed.
And films that
Groundbreaking type stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so we did do martial arts this time.
No,
Well, because we
gonna
were going to wait for
I
you.
wanted to
Okay.
so badly.
Well,
I studied for this for 2 hours, man.
Next time it'll be a pop quiz.
I'm ready. I'm
Pop
ready.
quiz, hot shot.
At least Cannon.
So,
I've been on a Shaw Brothers kick myself, so
so was I a while back. They were one of the channels I have up here did a Shaw kind of retrospect. And it was showing some of the old films, and I was like, for me, my first introduction to martial arts and that kind of stuff was sneaking and going and riding a bus into downtown San Antonio and going to Aztec Theater, but there was an old grindhouse type theater not too far from there, and you go in and watch 3 martial arts or whatever films you wanted. And on Thursdays, usually Thursday or Friday, they would show martial arts, and I would go in there and watch some of the older stuff. And then of course, Saturday afternoon martial arts theater.
right.
But as far as anime, are we picking a particular genre, or is it just open to anything?
No,
It's open
we're
anything.
avoiding anime.
This is
and
just
so like
yeah.
more of the American animations, right? Like we were just talking about Mighty Max a second ago. A
Heavy
lot of
Metal.
the Don Bluth type stuff, right? Touching on some of the Disney works and all that. Just avoiding the Japanese for a little bit and trying to focus on the homeland.
Homeland. Okay. You know what's funny and sad? Other than Colin, I'm the oldest person on this thing, and I remember when you had to go to theaters
Yeah.
to see animated movies, you know, and unless you were watching Disney, was it ABC? Which one was it who did Sunday Disney?
It was ABC.
ABC.
Yeah, I think
They
it's
had Wonderful World of Disney on
Disney,
Sundays.
yeah, on
Yeah.
Sundays, and we would gather in front of the telly.
Yeah. But no, we had to go to the theaters to see Heavy Metal. We had to go to see.
Well, even before that, I mean, you know, if you think Fantasia, seeing Fantasia in the theater for the first time, and then of course all the Disney films, The Rescuers. I remember going to see the first Rescuers. You know, dropped off with my brothers at the theater, and we sat there and watched it, and then we always did a 2 or 3 for 1 growing up. We learned how to maximize that video. Watching those things. If whether it was finding a parent, people who look like they could be your parents to walk in behind, or one of us going in at a time. And like if one of us got caught, oh, my brothers are in there, I need to go to them, and then they'd walk us in and go, they see your brother. That's our brother. Okay. And we'd get to sit down, you know. But we scammed that game. The greatest thing ever invented was the greatest thing ever invented was multiplex instead of just 2 theaters. It has 6 theaters in it. Oh my gosh, I'm never going home.
What part of San Antonio did you grow up in, Vince?
I grew up around South Presa, over by McCreeless Mall. So I'm not sure my compass is messed up. It's where like Hackberry and 37 and I-10 all kind of went around to each other. I went to CC Ball was my first school, because it was one of those 1 through 3, and then Riverside Elementary, which and then I went to, I don't know if any of these guys are still there anymore. Page was my junior high. I would have went to Wheatley High School, but I moved.
I went to Dobie.
Yeah, I went to Dobie. Well, I went to a literal 1-dog town for almost a year. And then we lived there when my dad built a power plant.
Sorry.
Oh, and everybody would gather around the one blinking light in town and just, wait for it to go out so they could have something to talk about. I literally had cougars that would walk by our trailer, mountain lions. You'd hear them and you'd go look out the window.
Please clarify the type of cougars that you were seeing.
Yeah, these are the kind that eat young men.
That works too.
You might want to clarify.
That didn't help at all. I remember one night we were watching something on cable, and it was me, Mike, and Gene, and we were sitting there, and Gene jumped up and was acting a fool, and we heard this outside the door, and we were like, what the hell? Open the door. We couldn't see anything through the little window. Open the door, and right there on the cement, pacing and walking around, was this cougar, and it just did a circle and decided it was going to flop down on the heat from the cement, right, literally 4 or 5 steps from our house. And we were expecting my dad to come home from the job, and we were panicking, trying to figure out what we were going to do to save my father from being eaten alive by this thing. So I grabbed a bat. Mike grabbed something. I think it was like a pry bar that was in my dad's stuff. And Gene grabbed a knife. And it was this butcher knife that my dad used when he was cutting up meat and stuff. And we were like, we got to do this. And then we heard the truck coming up the gravel road, and we are like, it's Dad. You know, we looked through the little side window. And, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And we saw my dad pull in, and we go, we got to go for this. 1, 2, 3. We bust out the door, and we're all like, ah! And my dad gets out of the truck and is like, what the hell are y'all doing? And we were like grabbing him and trying to drag him in the house, telling him, you know, there's a cougar out here. There's a big cat out here. And he's like, no big. And he heard it, and he was like, come on, let's get in. And we got into the house. And he got his gun, and he was like, okay, we're gonna go out there. We gotta go get rid of it. Oh, you know. So I was like, and my dad's favorite thing to do is like, okay, y'all go first, and I'll be right behind you. I know I can get a good shot. Okay, thanks, Dad. While we're wrestling on the ground with it, you know, he'll be like, I got you.
Use somebody for bait.
But it was gone. I mean, the truck obviously, you know, scared it. But
Yeah.
we lived around cattle. People had cows and, you know, everything else around us, and the horses, right? I could walk out my door, and there was a big old field where there were horses. I'd go pet a horse for and went to work. I mean, not to work, to school, but it was work for me. And so it was probably looking for a meal, an easy meal. But I really loved it. Got exposed to a lot of things. You know, how many kids can say you got chased on your way to school by javelinas down the street? You know, pack of roving javelinas. The worst thing I had to face in San Antonio were pack of gangs, you know, punk kids trying to steal your lunch money or beat you up because you walk through their neighborhood. But
We lived in San Antonio for 4 years.
I miss
in
it.
Utah.
I went back a couple of times. It's really different, you know.
Yeah, I imagine.
Everything that I remember from my childhood is pretty much gone. All the restaurants and everything.
Yeah.
I dug it on a level. Like the old missions were really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't actually get to see all of them, unfortunately, but I did get to see the church that's in operation for.
Did you go to, like, do you know where Espada Park is or any of that stuff? Where there's a mission over there by their old trails in, drive-in and stuff. We were right down. Do you know where the state hospital is there?
I think so.
Because my grandmother and my mom were both nurses at the state hospital, so we were not too far from their jobs. So it was relatively just down the road, just a couple of miles. But I'm distracting us. Let's go ahead and get back into what y'all were talking about.
I'm enjoying it though. Sorry.
We're just talking.
Yeah, we're just talking. This episode technically is let's just see how things go.
Here for all.
Let me see. I'm trying to think what would be. Of course, Colin, Heavy Metal, one of my all-time favorites. Saw that a dozen times.
Right.
Trying to think. There was other animated movies back then, like Fritz the Cat, in that same vein, which we weren't supposed to watch, but did. But I really loved when anime kind of started influencing cartoons and American cartoons. So you ended up like with Orin, The Legend of Star Chaser. What was another Rock and Rule?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Yep, we just talked about that. Wizard,
of course, anything that Frank that
man.
Bakshi did.
We didn't even talk about it. The Hobbit. The Hobbit was like one of my favorites growing up. I mean, I love that.
Rankin and Bass. Oh yeah, they did everything Rankin and Bass touched was just great.
But like Return to the King.
What's funny is we got The Hobbit, but they never got the rights to The Lord of the Rings. So then The Lord of the Rings went over to Bakshi and forget who. And then we got Lord of the Rings, which was going to be a two-parter, so it ended up being open-ended at the end. And then we got Return of the King back to Rankin and Bass. And
yeah, so the art style was so jarring between the two.
Yeah,
it was like, because one used rotoscoping, the other one was actually real animation.
Animation. Yeah.
I'm like, come on, guys, this looks so bad, but I want to watch this story.
Did they do the
But
Rudolph old cartoons?
Yes, they did
Stuff
all
like that.
all that clay animation stuff, and then they were doing live action movies too, that had that aesthetic. They were kind of like Tim Burton, you know, like you always know a Tim Burton movie. Well, you always knew something that came out of Rankin and Bassett Studios. Whether it was the animation, claymation, or not claymation, but the stop animation, or it was their
Stop
live
motion.
action movies,
Yeah.
it always looked the same.
The
But what's funny is just how influential those two cartoons, the first Hobbit and Return of the King, were to the movies, because there were a lot of influences that Peter Jackson had gotten from growing up watching that he added into the films that he made.
Right.
And then, of course, there was Showtime Shorts.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally forgot about that. The whole oh my gosh, the whole Masked Man.
Masked
Yes.
Man,
I have that.
Lupo the Butcher,
So yeah,
The cat came back.
the cat
the
came
cat
back.
came back. Yep.
I have almost all of those.
That's when animation got to be really fun for me, you know.
Well, Liquid Television too. I mean, you got to think about what MTV.
Well, yeah, well, Liquid
was
Television
later.
was on MTV, but that was later. But then there was USA Up All Night,
Yeah.
which
Right.
did their version of it, of Liquid Television.
Or Rhonda, what was that lady?
Which
Oh
one?
yeah, Rhonda up all night.
Oh yeah,
That was the
yeah.
first- that was the first
She
time
was
I
later
saw,
because
Chroma films there.
Yeah,
yeah, they would show some of the.
High, like,
man, we're you know the funny thing is, I'm gonna stop here real quick. We're talking about like a bunch of different topics all in one episode that we could have. I guess we'll branch out into further things later on. But go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
But it's
I just
funny,
said that's
all
just
of those
when I saw
connected.
that.
Yeah, I know they do exactly. Because I mean that's the funny thing is like for us with the whole USA Up All Night was where we saw or the Friday Night Flight or whatever where they would have the
Mhm.
movies and stuff, and us seeing Dynaman for the first time. That was our first introduction to Super Sentai stuff and the first introduction for Power Rangers before Power Rangers was a thing.
Right.
And it was like they took 5 episodes and they redubbed them into you know, this funny comedic 5-episode joke thing, and we just like we're riffing on it all the time.
So Jeff, I'm sorry, I missed some of what you were saying. Could you repeat it?
I was saying that's when I was first introduced to like the trauma films, like Nukem High, and Toxic Avenger, and stuff like
Toxic,
that.
of course. You couldn't get enough Toxic Avenger.
He was into it big time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Started like to seek out all the different trauma films and stuff, and it just got weirder and weirder, and
Okay.
and
So for,
like my shock level just kind of the bar
yeah, I
kept
can
getting
do
higher.
that. So okay. I me and Jeff had talked about this earlier. Actually, one of the guys
Where this is going.
on YouTube. Yeah, I know you know where this is going because I want Dad's reaction on this. So he was showing his garbage pail collection that he had when he was younger and stuff, talking about it, collecting and everything. And it's like it instantly reminded me of the time that Jeff came over and spent the night that one night. We either went to, I think it was Hollywood Video we went to,
Yeah.
but if not, it was Blockbuster because we usually frequented both of those on a Friday night before we would get into whatever gaming we would do for that weekend. And Dad was all like, all right, you guys can go pick something out you want to rent and we'll watch it. So I picked out something. I have no clue what it was. Amber picked out something. Dad picked out something. Jeff comes back with Garbage Pail Kids, the movie.
You have a door full of the old stickers, garbage pail stickers.
Who, me?
Somebody, I'm remembering
I
that.
don't know.
I didn't have them. I mean, we collected them, but I
didn't.
didn't have them.
Yeah, because I did Garbage Pail's Kids just were a bit way too much for me, you know.
Well, that movie was way too much for.
That was
Yeah,
that was
movie
edgy.
That movie was
Yeah.
so bad. It was like a trauma film with the Garbage Pail Kids. It was.
Mom was so against that. That was too much.
And the funny thing is too, I'll go back on this, is there's a movie that Dad hates, and it
You
falls in
bring-
line.
Don't bring that up here.
like,
Do you know, we already did this.
I know.
David
So, like,
reached through and pulled his
Andrew
cord
might
for him.
Andrew to that.
This is the second callback for Andrew.
But no,
Movie's
you know,
great, by the
what
way,
all?
man.
So kind of catch me up. What all movies did y'all talk about as far as?
Well, we were talking about the new Batman, and really,
I'm
everybody's
sorry. Yeah, it looks good. You can. Okay, you remember when we were talking to Dallas the other day? Dallas was wanting to know what we thought about the technology behind the episodes of FET and everything else, and the all the tech, all the how they were filming it, and the production value and all that. Okay, and that's great. You can make a beautiful turd. It can be fantastic, have the greatest special effects, look beautiful, and still be a giant turd on a string. That's kind of what I'm getting. Batman to me looks like it's going to be like the second coming of the nerd. Not the nerd, that's a bad word of saying it. Emo. How many people are going to be walking around dressed like the emo version of Bruce Wayne? That's, it's not bad enough that you got to go turn Vader into the biggest emo kid in the universe, who destroys everything. Now you got Batman who looks like he'd walk around going, yeah, why is everybody,
David's
bam.
like,
One point from the early reviews that I've been hearing that I know that you kind of were worried about, but I'm kind of curious about myself, is supposedly this plays up way more on his detective skills. Is what
I hope so.
yes, that's what I heard too.
Saying is that because of the nature of the Riddler in this movie, that you do see, and supposedly the tech that he uses to keep track and do all the detective work is different than what we've seen in other movies. The bits that I'm hearing have got me really curious how this looks, and I'm half worried it's going to fall short and be terrible. But I try to not let that.
Well, I'm getting it out of me so that when I do see it, I'll try to be able to go in with an open mind. Complain now, watch it, and then if I'm wrong, then I'll apologize later.
Okay.
But
I
why are
remember
they
when you
putting
used
it
to
on
complain.
HBO Max?
No, HBO Max doesn't come out until 45 days. It's in April, basically, is when it
Oh,
hits.
so it is going to get its theatrical release first. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just reading today where they were saying it was going to go straight to
That's what I was reading today too, until David found that new article he read.
I hope so.
Yeah, because right now they're hyping how many days left before it actually drops in theaters.
So, but
Yeah,
I remember you were complaining about Iron Man. No, Iron Man. You were complaining about
Robert
Iron
Downey
Man.
Jr. because
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. hadn't been able to carry anything but let alone water for half of his life. And
He was
third time's
fantastic, Chaplin.
no, I did love him as Charlie Chaplin. I did. But I didn't think he could pull off being a superhero. He was always that quirky guy. I loved him in every movie he's ever been in, but he was still back to school, the best friend of the what's his name's son, from that movie. But just like with Keaton, I was pleasantly surprised and happy. And what's really great is sometimes there's a character, an actor who just so much personifies that character that you at that point can never see anybody else playing him.
Right.
Because I originally wanted Timothy Dalton to play Iron Man back in the day. If you think about what Timothy Dalton looked like in, I wouldn't say Flash Gordon where he was Baron, but
No, but
how he looked in The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He looked straight
Neville
up
Sinclair.
in Iron Man, Tony Stark from the comics. But you can look like somebody and not act like them. How long was it that it took Bryan Singer to quit trying to make Hugh Jackman look short? The
Yeah,
first
they
two
just gave up on it.
movies,
I
he
know.
tried to make him look the right size, and he goes, "I give up." And all of a sudden, Wolverine was this hulking dude that just watching him walk in his boots that he always wore, I just keep hearing thunk, thunk, thunk. I was like, he wouldn't sneak up on anybody. There was no stealth there, you know.
But remember, Christian Bale was the same way. Not for us, because we had seen Equilibrium, but people were like, "You can't play Batman." But that was the thing
And he
we talked
didn't.
about.
That wasn't Batman. I don't know who that was, but that wasn't Batman.
Apparently, that wasn't Bane either.
Yeah, we already talked about that too.
Yeah, you
Go
missed
back to the
that.
beginning of the episode.
Oh, it gives you power over me. Why do you sound like somebody who's being chitty chitty bang bang? I don't get this. He did. I mean, I don't know where he got that accent from, but it was horrible.
He was trying to be Sean Connery.
But he didn't sound like Sean Connery.
You sounded like citrus.
There's no substitute.
There is no substitute for Sean Connery. Damn straight.
For whatever his excuse was. I remember that there was some interview that he did, and the weird thing about Tom Hardy interviews is you never know how much of it is him just like talking shit. Like whenever I'm trying to remember what the movie was. It was him and Shia LaBeouf, that Western kind of movie where they were playing what was it,
Moonshiners, yeah.
Not Legend. That was the other one.
They're brothers, right?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was leading up into that movie, they were doing interviews, and Shia was like going around talking about how he knocked Tom Hardy out. Like they got in a fight on set and he knocked him out. And someone asked Tom Hardy in an interview, and he just kind of started laughing. He's like, yeah, Shia knocked me out. Like,
We all know about LaBeowulf though, so
I wanna
a
know
little out there, just a little bit,
a little bit.
not a bit.
Yeah.
How do you think
Yeah,
he did
and
in
then when he was-
Transformers?
You know, I liked him in Transformers. You know, he's a good actor. I mean, I've seen him in some
Yeah, but
really good stuff, but
He's not Spike at all. You know, Witwicky.
He's
no,
certainly not Indiana Jones's kid either.
no, he wasn't because
Yeah.
Indy took that ad right up. Nope, give me that
Nope.
back.
All right, get out of here, Mutt. Yeah. Jeez.
Mutt.
Is there a new Indiana Jones coming out?
Yeah.
I read that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's going to be bad if they follow
Bad as
through
not
on
good?
what's. Well, here, let's throw this synopsis up there. Indiana Jones goes through time, meets his younger self. Both him and his younger self get killed. His young female assistant decides that to save history, she's going to take over the mantle of Indiana Jones's role and do everything
course.
Indy had to do.
Right. Just like
Yeah.
James Bond. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, speaking of James Bond, if he does get to play James Bond,
One more time.
no,
Idris Elba.
Daniel Craig is gone. Idris Elba is not playing him, and Idris is now moving away from movies and going with his singing career.
Well, he's doing the voice acting too.
And
so.
voice acting. But
Like
no,
Nemo.
what the guy Tom Hardy is up. He is one of those people up, but I think he's lower on the list now to replace Daniel Craig.
Okay, we need Ian McGregor to play James Bond.
I can't because I'll always see
Obi-Wan Kenobi. It'd be like
Obi-Wan Kenobi Obi-Wan
shaken.
Kenobi.
That's the
You can pull out a little
That's a good show
lightsaber.
coming
That'll
out.
be one of his little gadgets. So we can have Yoda playing Q.
actually
No, R2D2 BQ.
R2D2BQ.
He just opens up another panel and there's what he needs, you know.
Could have
It is R2D2. His whole thing
C3PO
is
is C3PO is Money Penny. Money Penny.
Be some weird tension though.
Yeah.
It would be some weird tension.
Look, Goldenrod, get out of here.
Yeah. This isn't what I ordered.
Oh god, that
Oh, man. Well, as long as we don't get Matt Smith or as much as I love David Tennant, I don't think either one of them have what we would need for.
Oh man, if
James
Tenet
Bond.
tried to be Bond, that would be no.
No. And Matt Smith even more no.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I'm just saying. I'm just making the joke of how,
Targaryen
like, the Doctor always changes. So does James Bond. He's a Time Lord.
Oh, that's what they should do in the next one. Daniel Craig, gets, we see him starts off, it opens up at the beginning. He's stumbling around the island and all of a sudden he goes, his head shoots up and lights up and his lights shoot from his finger and we hear the TARDIS sound going in the background. And then boom, it's,
The next one.
yeah, Woody Harrelson or somebody that you'd never expect.
Woody Allen.
Boy, that would be horrible. But and here we go, 20 degrees or whatever that is, because who did Woody Allen play? Here's a bit of trivia for this group.
are you talking about the original Casino Royale?
Yeah, he played James Bond Jr., right?
I forgot about that stupid movie.
How could you
Everybody
forget
forgot
it?
about that stupid movie.
It's the greatest ending of all. Hiccup is a countdown to the bomb going off. Because he gets gas from the bomb that he swallowed in a pill form.
Some
It's
days you just can't get rid of a
nuke.
bomb. Man, we're having callbacks after callback here.
Everything's connected in Hollywood,
It's
And Scooby-Doo. Everybody we've talked about has guest starred in Scooby-Doo at some point.
Now that's a movie I want to see. I want to see live action Scooby-Doo with Batman and the Harlem Globetrotters and who else? Scrappy-Doo.
No, Mark is not available. Boom, boom. Yep, brother, I'm thinking about you. But yeah, I'm always being accused of getting us off focus. So I'm trying to bring us back to
I'm
the
trying to think
cartoon.
of-
So
Saying as quiet
Well,
as I can. over
It
here.
doesn't have to be
no,
cartoon.
speak up. Come on. Want to hear you. I haven't heard your voice in a long time.
All right, Thomas.
I'll just distract you guys.
All right, so we can briefly touch on kung fu stuff. I'd love to be able to do a full episode on this, but
All right, let's go.
since we were talking about the Shaw brothers, I've always been partial to, and that's just because of my age and who I was introduced to first was Golden Harvest, and that was
Okay.
the Bruce Lee. Growing up watching his films, to me, he was the #1 martial artist ever. Jet Li comes in, and Jackie Chan before that. Donnie Yen.
Jackie Chan.
What was Jackie Chan's first American movie?
I want. You mean
Probably
first
not
actual?
Rebel in the Bronx.
No.
No,
the
because that
first,
was actually made there.
Oh, that was-
Not, it was,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What year was it?
70s, I think.
Was that the Legend of the Drunken Master, or that was
No.
dubbed?
I don't, well, let me clarify. Not his first film, but his first American film.
Was he in Enter the Dragon?
no.
And it was a comedy.
I'm blank on that.
That then I
I
don't
may be
know.
wrong, but as I remember it, this is his first American. Cannonball Run 2.
Okay, yeah, he was in that.
He was with
Burt
Richard.
Reynolds?
He was with Richard Joss Keel. They were driving the scientific car.
Oh,
Yeah, Burt Reynolds. Yep.
cool.
And that was up until then, I really hadn't seen a lot of comedy martial arts. And just watching that movie, I was just like, oh wow. And then that sparked my interest in
Well, and it wasn't
Jackie
until
Chan.
like, for us was the really kind of seeing Rumble in the Bronx was really kind of the thing that got us.
that was for your generation, but I knew who Jackie Chan was before.
No,
Yeah.
but well, I did too. But I mean, the biggest thing here that like boomed for like my friends and everything for people was Rumble the
Yeah,
Bronx.
Rumble in the Bronx.
Because I mean, we had seen Police Story and a couple of his other films back then, and you know, because and of course you got Chuck Norris with all his action movies. Since he was
Right.
The first Chuck Norris movie I ever saw was Breaker Breaker,
Okay.
and in a theater. But the first time I ever saw him on screen was the one we were talking about, where him and Bruce Lee fought, and I was thinking it was Big
Game of
Boss,
Death.
but no, it wasn't Game of Death. It was the other one.
Enter the Dragon.
Return of the Dragon.
Return of the
Two.
Dragon,
Yeah.
with his
Yes.
glorious
Yes.
chest of golden chest hair that then
Bruce
gets
Lee.
Bruce Lee
Bruce Lee didn't
rips
have.
out. I was dying, man.
Well, no, it's funny because everybody always makes the Chuck Norris joke, and look, I love Chuck Norris as much as everybody else, but it's like when you're gonna compare martial artists and stuff, Bruce Lee killed him in Return of the Dragon. He broke his freaking neck. So how can this god of a man survive that? He didn't.
Get a different-
David Carradine.
Make his own movie and get a different writer.
Now, see the beard, right? He died, went to hell, stole the devil's beard, put it on himself, and then that resurrected him, brought him back to life, and then he's been running around doing his whole thing ever since then. He's just been living on borrowed time. That's what it's been.
Walker.
Here's a bit of trivia. My sons, my brother. What we no, it's not a bit of trivia. Well, it is. Both I did a painting or some painting work for the son of the man who taught Chuck Norris.
Oh yes.
And they opened a dojo, so I did all the wall murals. I did the paintings on the glass, and that got us a year's worth of martial arts classes at their dojo. And there were pictures of his family and his father and Chuck Norris all over the wall. And they used to always come in and go, "Yep, we've heard he's going to come in and visit us." And then everybody'd show up and he'd never come. And
Yeah.
actually, he got us to almost be in
Sidekicks.
Sidekicks because they were filming it. He had invited some of the family to come and be some of the people actually in the movie, and we were going to get to go. And I forget what happened, but a bunch of us, something happened, and they weren't going to allow us to do what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Good one.
There was so many films that were filmed in downtown Houston, and not just downtown, just everywhere,
Baytown.
like off of Baytown, Navigation, and all those other.
I come in peace, and you go in pieces.
I got to see some cool sets in California. Some of them were like minor, made for TV type stuff, like Michael Landon's story that was being filmed at a scene was being filmed in Oceanside, California, and I got to watch the scene play out. And then one of the Crocodile Dundees, I walked on set.
It's really sad when you meet some of your heroes and they don't live up to what you've built them up in your own mind. I've had that happen a few times, but
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say one of my heroes, George Perez, man.
no, I can't. Just watching him in the hospital is just rough.
Yeah. I remember when we met him at the con we did for the first was it the Thorn comics?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I had met him before that, back when I got him to sign an old Teen Titans comic that I'd had. Him and Marv Wolfman were sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
It was, you bring that up, the people from back then, they were really into, giving advice. They were all about the kids coming in and wanting to break into the industry.
Yeah.
And now it's all, how much money can they get off of you before they're going to talk to you? And I think that's a sad
Yeah.
sign of where everything went.
Yeah, because I showed Perez some stuff I did with Vandalier and everything
Vandalier,
like that.
yeah.
Just a couple of the sketch sheets, and he's like, okay, and he gave me good advice: do this, try this, don't put so much here, and stuff like that. And I walked away knowing so much more about myself.
Well,
as
you
an
think
artist.
about it. Those were that was your influences. So you learned to draw from them.
Absolutely. Perez was my big. He's my
Neil
big guy.
Adams and Arthur Adams. My Ramita Jr. I got to meet Ramita Jr. and I was just amazed at how friendly and he was.
That's where I would like to see some animation styles go. Draw on some of those comic books. The Ramitas, the Perez, and stuff like that. I would love to see their styles, immortalized in animation form. That would draw me back into the animation stuff a lot more. I mean, the recent crop of DC animation, a lot of that was really good.
Yeah, I can't wait for House of Mystery.
Yeah,
which is coming out,
and that's got a different style to it, and I'm looking forward to it. Being a Constantine fan, I looked at that. I'm like, okay, he looks different. They used a different style. I'm wondering, are they going to actually tell the story about how he's getting sick? Leading up to all of that, where
they kind of led all to that already. Is because after Constantine redid the universe, remember?
After he talked Flash into doing another Flashpoint.
Yeah, so they this is a whole new storyline and new arc, but it tells you this is his trip into purgatory because of everything he's done. There's a cost.
Yeah.
So it's just really sad that the animation and the movies do better at telling us a comic or telling a story than the movies are.
Yes, that was one of the things we talked about earlier, was how Warner Brothers just kind of phones it in, and the way they rushed the Justice League.
Well, Warner Brothers is by committee now. Once AT&T and whoever the other parent company is took it over, you can really see that the creative side is disappearing.
Yeah,
and they're only about what they hope will guarantee them seats.
Money. Yeah,
and
we talked about that too.
Any idea of continuity? Every movie is going to be different. Nobody's going to be connected. Marvel at least did a good job of making sure everybody got in and saw every movie, because like they used to with every comic, you had to keep following it to see what was going on. When you're doing like DC does, and you've got like one story that fits here, one story fits there, you can just pick and choose the movies you want. There's no reason to go see every one of them.
Right.
So I think I've touched on it before, but that also gives you a flexibility, right? When you aren't bound to continuity between them, you can go out and flex different ideas and attempt other things without having to go in and try and establish a kind of multiverse sort of deal, right? Like you can have, one of the things that we were talking about with this whole Matt Reeves Batman is if they do lean more towards this almost horror type thing, you could do interesting takes on characters like Clayface, whereas if you were stuck with the Nolan verse, you would never really be able to get there, right? So it's
the Nolan verse wasn't even part of any of that stuff.
No, but there were people who were hoping, right, that it was.
Yeah, but on all honesty, David, could you put superheroes in Nolan universe? Superman show up in a second and would just outshine Batman in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So with what you're saying about the Batman, Reeves has sat down and said they're already pushing him for a sequel. And he sat down and said, "Look, they want to bring Superman. Why you got to go straight for the big couple?
Right.
Let's get some other minor characters that or secondary characters in there, and I think they would play up right." But he said, "I can't. If he wants to bring Superman, he wants to depower him." And I was like, why?
Yeah, and I don't, and that's where I want them to avoid it, right? I'm tired of seeing Batman, and I'm tired of seeing Superman back and back and back, and always the same circle of characters. That's why it's like I would love to see them try and pull Clayface. I would like to see them go in to like the Constantine type characters, right? Like when they did the Swamp Thing show, and you had Madame Xanadu in there. I would love to see them try and tackle like Jason Blood and the Demon and stuff like that. Like go that route. Go if you go a route, go there, and then you can start having magic and those kinds of things start showing up, and then you can bring in Superman, and now you have a weakness that isn't the same weakness that we've seen a million times that can actually deal with them, right? So, and that's, but again, it's one of those things where, and that's why I like having that segmented style between them. I don't need Black Adam and Matt Reeves' Batman. Right. I want Matt Reeves' Batman to be its own thing, be able to experiment and do the things that he wants to do with the character. And I don't need The Rock showing up in it. I want to see The Rock, and I want to see Dr. Fate, and I want to see Atom Smasher and all the cool, awesome stuff that it looks like they're doing over there. I don't need that peanut butter and this chocolate mixed together necessarily. But Matt Reeves is a nice, delicious peanut butter. The Black Adam Rock and all that looks like it's going to be some good chocolate. I don't need those mixed together. I like them to be able to be separate and to do the experimentations of their stories and the way they want to tell them without having to fit those puzzle pieces together in the same universe. And I don't want multiverse. I don't give a shit if these are connected. I don't need Dr. Fate to open this window and be like, oh yeah, over here is where Matt Reeves is, and over here is where Christian Bale is, and over there's the Snyderverse that's surrounded by a bunch of people that desperately want it to come back. And I don't need that. I can appreciate what Marvel's done with the stories that they've told and that they feel that they need to continue telling, but I don't want a reason to have to go watch every single DC movie to really have an idea what's going on. I want these, I miss the days of superhero movies when they were just themselves, right? Spider-Man was Spider-Man. X-Men was X-Men. Fantastic Four was Fantastic Four. And I didn't have
Superman was Superman.
See, the problem with that is that if you're going to build a franchise, and you can see it in today in filmmaking, if something hits or misses, we get a reboot, and then another reboot, and then another reboot. When you have a franchise like that, one thing Marvel decided was we're going to quit rebooting. We don't need to see multiple origins of Spider-Man. We don't need to see I don't think we're going to get an origin film for Fantastic Four. Yes, I'm glad. I don't need to see that origin again. Now, if you want standalone films, create a line that is called Elseworld, like you did in the comics, which was originally designed to give people a playroom, a sandbox to go and do what they want. The problem is that these people who do that, they also then get in on the mainstream title or in a mainstream franchise, and they want to change it because they want their name on the main product, not an Elseworld or a What If or whatever. They want to take over. They want to have them associated with the real product. And you can't do that because, for one, if it's a hit or miss in the way Hollywood works now, it could be 20 years before you see them try again. So every time they try to do a Superman, every time they try to do a Spider-Man, if it fails, it delays the next film.
Well, the thing is, too, is think about it this way. The movies that, like, for David's example, would have been, Shang-Chi. It's a good standalone movie. It doesn't have any, it has some little bitty lines that connect other things, but it's not the main focus of the story. It's technically the same thing with Eternals. Yeah. But they are stuff. You don't technically have to watch them to continue on the story. If you don't want to watch them at all, you don't have to, but they do bring another element if you want to look deeper.
Yeah. Right. But at the same time, they still have to remain within the play box that is the MCU, right? As a whole.
Yes.
They wouldn't be able to and experiment with some other, you still have to fit it within some kind of time frame, fit it within some kind of time zone within that
Otherwise, you have people that start complaining about the continuity and all that. And you're right, right? If you're trying to create a franchise, then yeah. But I also miss the days of just trilogies, right? Instead of us being in this never-ending series of just story upon story upon story upon story upon story with all these characters. It's like I enjoy the characters for who they are, for what they are, for the time that we get the story that's told of them. And then at a certain point, it's like we need to move on from this version of the kid. It's like you didn't like the Christian Bale Batmans. Okay, well now we have this new Matt Reeves Batman. Is this one going to be better? Is this one going to be more to your tastes? Possibly. Would we have gotten here if not for them deciding to reboot it?
Or you mean if we hadn't gotten Joker?
Yeah. So I mean, it's right, and there's another thing, right? Joker doesn't fit anywhere. Technically, that's an Elseworld of its own, right? And it's I just again,
it's also a knockoff of another movie,
Right.
right. And again, it's I can appreciate them doing again. I appreciate what Marvel's done in constructing this giant universe that they have, but at the same time, I do miss that ability to be surprised with a take on a character that they're going to do because of the fact that they've decided to go in such a different direction with this character that we established over here, and now they've gone this other way. And yeah, once you do that, if the studio sees, hey, we like this thing, and now we're going to start applying it to everything, right? Like Nick Fury's Sam Jackson. Now, yeah, Nick Fury's Sam Jackson on everything, right? It's like I understand that, but that's also where you get innovation for some of these stories, and you do get new interesting storylines that get injected into some of these characters. And no, I don't want to see Bruce Wayne's parents shot again in that stupid alley with the pearls and all that. I don't need that. We don't need origins for a lot of these stories, but because of that, you can skip that part of the story and jump right into something more interesting. And you can leave it open-ended like this Batman, right? With the fact that his bat is made of guns, right? It's like, okay, what's the backstory to that? Well, I don't really need to know. It's just an interesting little thing that now fan theories can be brought up on. The director can speak to what, his vision of it was it for and all that good stuff. And now you have a slightly interesting detail that you've injected into this character that didn't exist for the last 3, 4, 5 iterations, right? So that's where I like to see that ability to innovate with these stories and these characters. And you only get that by being able to be separate from this other universe.
So are you afraid that the take that you're going to get that's going to be the established canon is, if it fails, you're going to be angry the whole entire time you're watching the whole trilogy? I mean, the whole experience? I mean, because technically, no, David, because if what I'm getting from this is that David loved the Marvel movies up to Guardians of the Galaxy. And after that, he felt like the humor that was established in the Guardians of the Galaxy and taken into 2 kind of bled into everything. So instead of it being kind of like serious with a realistic humor, it became a little over the top with certain things. But you think about the same argument with Spider-Man. Spider-Man has a new origin. He never had an Uncle Ben. At least that we know.
We just don't know what happened to him.
Well, we don't know. Technically, he doesn't talk about it.
It's almost like he wasn't around, and it was May who took over the role that Ben had.
Yes.
Right. He makes a comment about his uncle, but you get no idea what it's in reference to, who he was, whether he died.
I need to go back.
But if you go back and watch the newest film, when he's talking to the other 2 Spider-Men, Ben was not a big influence on his life like Ben was in both of there. He had a May. He says that.
Yeah.
So that tells you, like you said, those logical jumps, that Ben wasn't around for him. He didn't get all of that from him. But where like is Andrew Garfield's was all about his parents.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire's character was a character that was from a time period in America where most people, might not have lived with their parents. They might be living with their grandparents or an aunt and uncle, and they all reflected the different time that those characters were created and lived in. The one thing I grew up in a time when everything was not serialized. Each comic book was a standalone story. Each television was a standalone story. They always felt disjointed to me, where I enjoyed watching somebody grow up and how they changed and how the world changed them, which is what you get in a serialized type of story. We don't get to see all of James Bond's life. Films are like little photographs in a person's life, but it didn't stop us from, in our own minds, making all those movies fit into the same universe at the same time. Logically, we try to put things in order. That's how our brain works. That's why we see things that are there that aren't really there in a pattern. And there are avenues for that. Once Batman had become so dark and gritty and realistic, all of a sudden it lost everything that was really true about Batman. And every film that came out after that was like that. Just like with Schumacher's Batman, everything was super silly. The 60s that's what he grew up with. He grew up with the 60s Batman. He never read a comic, so that's how he created Batman. That's why we ended up with all that other stuff after Tim Burton.
Bat nipples.
Bat nipples.
Nipples.
And the credit card.
Smooth asses.
Batman doesn't need to be. I still think that Ben Affleck played the best Batman I've ever seen. Except I would have liked to have played up more on what is going on in Batman's head. He is broken. He is a broken human being. But it is he's almost like OCD. I've got to put the pieces together. There's a pattern here. I got to find it. That's what made him a great detective. And we've yet to see them touch on either one of those in any movie.
Well, from what I'm hearing, the new movie is supposed to do that.
Well, let's knock on wood. I hope so. I would love to see it. But, I could see, what's his name, Robert Pattinson, in his little lab coat and his little nutty professor glasses with that haircut he's got going on and being in a lab and doing something. But I can also see it being just a superficial touching on it and moving on.
No, from what I've heard, there's a lot of him being the detective in this. And the biggest complaint people have said is how long this movie is. Now, keep in mind,
I don't mind long movies. I love long
I don't
movies.
either. The thing for me is that I would have liked to have seen Earth One Batman. That's what needed to be made into a film. That's what the way the story needed to be, And
I don't. Yeah, as you said that, I don't need another movie where Alfred ends up I betrayed. He betrays Master Bruce, because he thinks he's doing the right thing. I don't need that. Alfred was loyal, loving, and did everything he could to protect Bruce. He was his balance, just like if Superman had never had Mom, Pa Kent, he would never been the person he was. And that's been explored in I don't know how many comics now. Everybody needs something to ground them into the world. And those I don't want to say sidekick characters, but those characters. And it seems that they get pushed aside or they get written to where they betray a trust. And I just don't like it. Because he says it in the movie, he's mad at Bruce because Bruce didn't tell him. He's mad at Alfred because Alfred didn't tell him something about his family. Bruce Wayne, the man who keeps secrets about everything, got mad at somebody else because they kept a secret. Give me a break.
The great detective can't figure something out for himself, so he's going to get mad. So my problem is that we keep doing this because they keep screwing up with like Batman and Superman. And while they do this, they keep remaking Batman and Superman. But it's like, we're not going to get the Flash. And I'm sorry, I like Ezra Miller. He's not Barry Allen. He's not Wally West.
No.
And I like the CW show, but it's not Flash at this point. I want to go back to the old, the one that I watched in the 90s. That was the closest we've ever gotten to a truer Flash.
But again, that was riding on the back of Tim Burton's Batman.
Movie. So, and see, the thing is that falls in that whole line. Tim Burton's movie was great. Both of them were great.
And while we're on this Batman thing, remember when I wanted to make Thomas
Nightwing.
Robin. Well, no, Robin. Remember, I thought he'd be the
Yeah.
perfect
I
Robin.
remember you saying that.
I was like, man, you gotta
There's-
let me make you a Robin costume. And I wasn't talking the I want to see you in small, tidy, whitey, yellow shorts. I was
That's
talking
cool.
Nightwing or, a later version of Robin, because you were the perfect build for it. Just like, Jeff always wanted to be Venom.
Venom.
And I never quit trying to work how to make him look good in a Venom costume. And then the one time I start to do it, he flexes and rips the whole costume to pieces. I was like, I give up.
A little chubbier than Eddie Brock. So,
Well,
We'll put you in one of those wraps. Just wrap.
You've always either wanted me to make me Thor or Iron Man. No, you already made me Iron Man.
I
but
made
wanted-
you Iron Man.
Cap,
What are you
you wanted
talking
me to
about?
make me Cap.
he made you a
or
lot
Thor.
of things, Vince.
Yes,
You
he
always
did.
had
He did
something.
make a lot of costumes for me.
I
He
remember
passed up-
playing with Logan, and I'd made him a really kick butt Spider-Man costume, and we had watched the third one with the Sandman, and I was like, man, that is something that you want to do. So I had these gold sheets that I would wrap up in my hand and make balls with him, and then he'd be jumping from the couch to the chair, and I'd throw it and it would fly out of my hand, but I'd still have the sheet wrapped around me, and it looked like I'd be trying a sand fist trying to grab it. And he loved it. I enjoyed the heck out of playing with them. That's the thing about movies. If they play upon your imagination and they capture the real essence of what you're doing, you really enjoy it, but you'll know immediately when they miss the mark. It never fails.
Right.
And I don't
Sadly,
know. Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
I was going to say, and sadly, the WB has gone down that rabbit hole too many times now.
So I got to ask you, what do you think of the new Titans, the new Gotham Knights? What's happening?
I'm optimistic about it. They're talking about recasting and adding, having some of the same characters, but then different.
Yeah, but they're not going to make them. You got Batman gets killed. So
Yeah.
who do they blame? Robin.
Yeah.
So Robin becomes Nightwing to prove himself innocent, but there is no Jason. There is no Tim. He goes around and talks to all the villains' children and turns them into the Bat family. So we get a daughter of somebody who becomes Batgirl. We get Red Hood is the son of another villain. Tim Drake's character is another villain's son. We're going to get the Bat family, but it's not going to be. And they consider that being a unique take on something. That's not a unique take. That's just you changing, making unnecessary changes for something that could work if you just left it alone and went with
That's the
original
problem.
story.
That's the biggest problem with Hollywood right now with adapting stuff to film or television. They don't want to take the risk of taking a thing that we've been reading or playing for decades and just adapting it to film. Because not everybody's a gamer, not everybody's a comic reader. They only know these things through backstories. So why not just adapt what is already established? And a lot of it has to do with rights, because they would have to pay certain estates to do certain things. So it's easier for them to take the idea or what they have control over and then retell a story that they want to tell. But that's the problem. Most people don't want to watch that.
Right.
You should tell a story. If you have something that's good, take that story, adapt it into a film. How many times did we get we had 2 versions of the Punisher?
Yeah.
And of course, we both versions.
Wait.
I think it was 3. Yeah.
3.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I
forgot about
enjoyed
that.
War
I forgot about that. Ray
War
Stevens.
journals.
No,
Yeah,
with
Ray
Dolph
Stevens and
Lundgren.
Tom
4 if you think about, we were talking about movies.
Well, movies.
If you
so-
add in Netflix, there's 4.
Correct. Right, because you got Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren was first.
Thomas Jane,
and
Ray
then
Stevens.
Ray
Stevenson, right?
Yeah.
which I enjoyed. I thought he was the most Punisher of all of them.
Yes.
But we enjoyed all three of those
Warzone
movies.
was a
That the
great
second
movie.
right? Like
Which one?
Yeah, that was the second movie. Yeah.
the Thomas Jane.
Yeah, the second was
Yeah.
Thomas Jane. They moved it to Florida and made him an ATF agent, super agent, and all that. And then what happens? Netflix comes along and proves that you can make a good Daredevil. You can make a good Punisher and stay true to the characters.
Right.
And you can do it in a serialized version where people come back every week wanting to see what happens to these characters. But when you talk about rights, I was just recently reading up about how that there's over 800 films in Disney's library, and we only get to see about 80 of them,
Right.
because of licensing of the music that's in the film. They only license it for a certain thing, and a lot of it hasn't gone to streaming services because they don't own the streaming rights to the music. Man, this is getting crazy. Now you're not going to be able to do anything unless you pay somebody something. You know, you would think like if it's in a movie and it's been broadcast, then it should be available to everybody. But no, if you're going to put it on TV, you got to have TV rights. If you're going to put it on a streaming service, you have to have streaming rights. You know, they already get money for every time their songs are played, you know, but now they want more money for other things. But they forget that if you're doing that and you're exposing new audiences to your music, that's free advertising for you.
Yep.
And there's somebody going to go, wow, man, I really like this song. I'm going to go out and find out what that came from.
No one ever thinks about the fact that, like, you know, how wonderful demos were back in the day. Being able to get a demo disc from a magazine for a game or music or whatever,
Right.
of something, and then it's like you get it, it builds that hype, and then they want to go and buy it. Why? And it's like it's the same thing with what Napster back in the day. Oh my gosh, people are downloading music and blah blah blah. They're taking away my rights. But I guarantee you, they had more sales with music that way, because it's like, oh wow, I didn't even know this band existed. Cool, I like this band. I'm gonna go spend money to help support them. You know, of course, there's a small fraction of people that just want to buy things, get things for free, but there's more people out there that are willing to pay and contribute to the people that they enjoy listening to or watching than, you know, the alternative. So why wouldn't you do these things?
A good example for me is Orbital. I would have never been exposed to Orbital if it hadn't been for the first Mortal Kombat movie, because I love that soundtrack. And I was like, I need to find out who all these people are. And then it got me into going and getting Orbital music, you know, buying their CDs. So there's a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But all right, so let's go ahead and get into our final question here, and just I guess trying to think if I want to word this, because I can just edit or whatever. But because I had the questions I did for the kung fu stuff, but we'll get into that another weekend or another week,
another episode.
Yeah. So
all right, I got.
Okay, go ahead, Colin. If you got something,
actually, this was going to be one for the martial arts thing, but I was going to say if you were to take like a TV show, or we can do a TV show or something that you were going to put toward animation, what would it be?
You mean like live action that we would make animated?
Yeah,
I think that's what he's talking about. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like for me,
that works for what we're doing.
This would have tied in with the martial arts. Like for me, the movie The Five Deadly Venoms. You were to put that in anime, you could really go heavy with a lot. And
actually, it played up more on the poisons and stuff like that.
Exactly, and a lot more of the gore and the deadliness of it.
Is that the movie where it has a dude with the toad style and
the centipede, the toad. There was the scorpion,
Mm-hmm.
mantis.
No,
I
not
don't know if
mantis.
it was a mantis.
No.
I'm trying to think of what the other poison was. They were all insects with poison. But and there's a sequel to it.
Yeah, but
It's not as close, it's not, but still,
So do we
most-
want to do
some people
TV
don't
shows
realize
or we
that.
want to do movies?
we can
I
do
think-
both.
Okay.
I would since we've covered both today.
So we got Collins, or do you have another one?
No,
You
I
give you an example.
that's what came
Game
across.
of
That's what
Thrones.
inspired the question earlier.
Okay.
It's just I would like to see that put in anime form.
Be
Okay.
awesome. I think Game of Thrones. I'd like to see Martin's vision.
Martin's
So,
Vision animated.
Yeah, I mean, just
Animated.
go crazy with it.
I could see that working. What about you, David?
So if we're not limiting it to just TV shows, a movie series that I think would be pretty cool, especially considering the last movie, if you went animated with it, would be Mad Max. If you did a Mad Max TV series that was like animated,
Animated, yeah.
and you could go even further into just the bat crap insanity. It'd be like, we mentioned Fist of the North Star earlier, right? It'd be like
Right.
Fist of the North Star, but without all the weird, crazy martial arts powers. You could just lean more into the post-apocalyptic
Fuck
side
with
of
the world. Yeah.
powers and
Yeah,
all that stuff. That would be pretty cool to see.
What about Escape from LA? I know it's a movie, but
it's okay.
No, it still fits because we were saying movie or TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, do you want to do just a continuation of the character, Snake Plissken going on, whatever?
I would just want to see the
In that
adventures
feature?
of Snake Plissken.
Yeah.
that'd
Just-
be cool.
All the little references that they bring up in the movie.
Yeah, the
like,
medical
what-
freaks and plastic
Well,
surgery.
Well, not only that, but I was thinking how you escaped to this place. Well, we never got that in a movie, or you got out of here. How did you do that? They're thrown out there to perk the imagination, but we're never going to get to see what those stories were. That would be a great avenue a venue for them to tell more of Snake Plissken's life. I'd like to see an origin for him. At what point did he go from being a loyal soldier to an anti-hero?
Yeah.
right. And Kurt Russell, he may not be able to do the action, but he could certainly
He
do
did
the
the
voice.
Voice,
Yeah.
right.
He was great. He was great in that.
So he could actually keep that realism, and you could keep that tie to it by just having him go and read his lines, and it, be a good payday for him, and it would probably work out very well.
So Jeff,
Oh, that's short notice.
I'm saving mine to last. So
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess with the John Carpenter, like the Thing, kind of see like how that progresses.
have that animated. That'd be pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
kind of like
Actually-
what they did for Dead Space.
Yeah.
What'd you say, David? Are we adding to it?
So if you did that, you could actually go into more of the comic storyline, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gets out
Yeah.
there and do that full thing.
Dad,
I'd get it off of Earth though. I'd put it in space.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of people that don't know more than other than the two movies, so
Dad.
better than the Thing.
A lot of the anime or manga that I've read and comics I've read have already made it into either a movie form or turned into an animated movie, including some of the stories like the Heaven Sword, Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, which was an epic story, which was a manga, then
No,
became
but remember,
a
we're
live
talking
action
about-
movie,
we're talking
and
about
it became
American-
a cartoon anime. I know, I'm
American
just saying,
movie.
I'm
the other
thinking,
way around.
but what I'm saying is that, okay, like Dune, it's not an American. There's a lot of stuff that came from other countries that have been Americanized. But if you're going to go back to the source material, then you got to go kind of back to where it first came from. Even a Thing, who goes there? Campbell. It's not basically an American story, but and it goes all the way back to Agatha Christie's, those type of novels.
All right, Dad.
But
You're
as
getting
far
too-
as
you're getting too analytical here.
I know I am, but I'm trying to think, what would I want to see? Alien. I want to see an Alien animated movie that actually delves into, throws out Scott's crap, takes the first movie as its starting point and either goes backwards from there, where they try to figure out where they came from, or starts telling just one legacy story that has a lot of little single stories in it, like what happens, when an alien is introduced into a certain environment, But don't do it for kids. I don't want to see it for kids.
No.
It should be R-rated,
Yeah,
and it should be for adults, like Spawn was.
Right.
Okay, so this is two things. So I actually have two. I actually had three, but I'm gonna narrow it down just to two. So first it would be amazing to have the Adventures of Jack Burton and Wang animated series.
Okay.
But my top one would be Buckaroo Banzai as a TV show or animated TV series.
Yeah, that would be
Not the first movie,
but
continuation of what
no,
happened.
I understand. But if you think about those that were going to get sequels, right? We know that Bubba Hotep was going to have
Sequel, yeah.
the Nosferatu. We know that the next Buckaroo Banzai would have been a gangster film where he went up against mobsters, monsters that have technology. I think that the whole thing with the Jack Burton animated, it might be fun for a little bit, but it might get repetitive because they're going to keep it'd have to be somebody who was great enough to not keep putting him into the same situations, because you have a hero who is a bumbler who gets through everything by accident. After a while, it gets old. But if you want to change the character and make him grow and become better at what he's doing instead of just getting away with it, that would be kind of cool.
So the real one I had was I'll go ahead and do the third one anyway. A Fright Night cartoon about the adventures of Charlie Brewster and Peter Vincent. Dealing with other creatures of the night besides
other
vampires.
monsters. Yeah, all the stuff that we think are just from the movies, find out they're real.
Yeah.
Oh, I have an addendum one. The Frighteners. Have it pick up as like a sequel continuation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was gonna say, didn't he lose that ability? But no, he still had it in the end.
Yeah, because he saw the ghost of the FBI guy there.
FBI guy, yeah.
And you could, imagine you could really lean into it more with more seeing of the actual ghosts and the variety of things that could come from.
Now, if you were going to do something like that, think about Sixth Sense. Could you imagine a show like Sixth Sense where it picks up after he's older and he uses ghosts to help solve problems and solve murders and help? His whole goal in life is to make sure that the spirits are put to rest, so he can have peace.
They did that. He just grew boobs and was named Jennifer Love Hewitt, and it was called what was it?
Don't you dare don't you say Ghost Whisperer. The only thing that they should never mind. I wanted her to sneeze and blow off her top, and I'd have watched that show more often, but no.
What was it, Medium or whatever her show was?
No,
called?
Medium was Patricia Arquette.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it?
No, it was
all
Ghost
variants of
okay.
all variants of the same story.
Yeah.
Although Ghost Whisperer did have that one season finale that went through like 4 or 5 episodes with the plane crash, that little mini arc that they had, that was really good and different.
Yeah. I didn't watch all of Ghost Whisperer.
I didn't watch all of it, but I watched that particular story arc. And the finale of it was her best friend who was there with her the whole time was actually dead.
Okay, I'll throw one else out there. I want to see The Threat done as an animated TV series.
It's not a movie yet, though, Dad.
I don't care about movie. We can take it straight to television.
Netflix,
yeah. Netflix, come calling, please. I actually had an animator out of California wanted to turn it into a series, so
Check out what is it, thethreat.com? Or I'll put it in the description below if you want to check out the comic that my dad and one of his best friends, Mark's, the partner on his the book. Description's below. You can purchase it digitally from us.
Did
All right,
not-
everyone. What, Dad?
Did not expect that to get turned into a commercial. I was just-
Well, I'll have you. You know what? I'll make a commercial for you and Mark. You just guys need to. I'll set it up and you guys can work on it for me, and I'll edit it together.
You need to
I'll do
work
the
on-
music.
You need to work on your grift skills.
My grip.
Your grift. GRI.
Griff. Yeah, I watched. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. But I'm glad you didn't say grip. I was like, that I don't even want to touch that one either. So good night, folks. Bidi, that's it.
Well, you have to touch it to grip it. So
Giggity.
It just drove off
Before
the
you-
cliff like Thelma and Louise, man.
before you whip it,
Ooh.
just turn it into a Devo song, which goes back to heavy metal.
And on that note,
Yeah. On that note, that whole part's gonna get edited out anyway. All right, everyone. All right, let me get my composure back. All right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Download Podcast. Please tell us anything below in the comments that you got from this episode. If you have any kind of commentary or whatever, please put it down below. Give us a like if you enjoyed the episode. And remember, subscribe if you enjoy our content. Have a good one from all of us to you later.